Okay, we're live. It's me, Ryland Warner. I'm here with Luke Neerman. We're from Joseph and Hall. We're attorneys here, and this is our weekly update for you all. I think this, I don't know if I've ever, I know I've done one with you, Luke, but I don't remember doing an intro spiel like this. Usually I always make the other person do it, but here I'm doing
You did a good job.
it.
Welcome, everybody.
Welcome. I think I'll start off with my story today. This is our weekly stream where we just talk about what's going on in the world of immigration. And not a whole lot is happening this week, but I did see a story about an attorney in New York that's been arrested for committing immigration fraud, and so I just thought it would be a good opportunity to kind of warn people about the signals that you might look for when you're dealing with somebody that might not be authorized to practice law, and something that might sound too good to be true might be exactly that. So I just want to put a general warning out there for people. So there was an immigration attorney. He was based in New York, and it does sound to me like he at least believes that he was genuinely helping people. But he has been sentenced to prison time because he was practicing without authorization. He had been previously debarred from the New York bar, and but was continuing to represent people and try to get people benefits such as green cards. One thing that he offered, and that is kind of a common scam with notarios, and notarios is the word for people that are unauthorized to practice law, but nevertheless still do, is something called a 10-year green card. Luke, have you ever heard of a 10-year green card or this scam?
Yeah, well, I think when they're talking about a 10-year green card, usually when a green card is issued, it has a validity period for 10
Mm,
years. So,
mm. Yeah, well, that was my first thought as well. But actually, the scam refers to saying, okay, you've been in the United States for 10 years, and that means that you can get a green card no matter
uh,
what the circumstances are.
right.
And there is actually a mechanism to do this. It's called cancellation of removal. What that requires is that you are in deportation proceedings and you have to meet a number of legal requirements to actually get cancellation of removal approved. And so it's technically possible, but there's a huge risk where if this doesn't work, suddenly you're deported. And oh well, that's the the potential outcome of this, and it's a very high risk. And so what this 10-year green card scam was is intentionally getting people into removal proceedings and then trying to go with that cancellation of removal route, which is, yeah, it's
That's
terrifying.
risky.
Yeah, very risky, could lead to people getting deported, and it has, I'm sure, led to people getting deported. So if you are speaking with an attorney or someone that you believe to be an attorney, maybe you've gone to other attorneys and they haven't been able to find green card options for you before, be wary of this potential idea of, oh, you've been in the country for 10 years. Do you have any criminal history? No, blah, 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 blah. They might go through some factors. And if they say, well, then we could get you a green card, that might be this sort of scam. So look out for that. Some general warning signs are just anyone saying that they could get you a green card very quickly. These processes can take time. That's just an unfortunate truth about how the immigration system works. So if you're talking to somebody and they say that they can get you a green card in a month, in 2 months, that should set off some red flags for you that maybe something isn't right here and they're actually just trying to scam you. Talking to someone that is saying that they have special sway with immigration authorities. No, do not believe that. Clients will often come to me and want me to talk to the person that issued their decision. And usually it's just the director of the Denver field office who probably never even actually read the decision. It was the underlying officer that wrote the decision, and then they put the director's name on it. So, first off, it might not even. Andy Lambrecht at the Denver field office probably has no idea what your case is about or anything about it. But any officer or any attorney that you speak to that says that they have an inside line to Andy Lambrecht, be wary of that. Be very wary of that. And then, there is oftentimes risk involved with some of these green card procedures. I mean, it can depend on what exact route you're trying to go. But if you are talking to an attorney that is giving you a 100% guarantee or not addressing any percent of risk that might be involved, that could be a red flag too. Doesn't necessarily mean that it's a scam, but the immigration world is very fraught with risks, unfortunately, and rarely are things 100% guaranteed. So if you're talking to someone that is saying, oh yeah, this is 100% going to happen, especially if you have some complicated criminal history or complicated immigration history, that could be a sign that something bad is happening there. How could you try to, if you're talking to someone and maybe you're thinking something's going on here, one thing that you can do is check whether or not, if you're in the state of Colorado, you can check online whether or not they are registered as an attorney in Colorado and an active bar member. So you can just search for the Colorado Supreme Court attorney records, put in any attorney's name that you're speaking to, and if they're active, they should show up in that system. And it will also show you if they have had any what's the word for it? Where if you do bad things,
discipline.
Yeah, if any disciplinary actions have been taken against that attorney, it would show up there too. So that's a good place to look. If you are wondering whether or not an attorney is legit or not, you can at least look there to see whether or not they had the baseline requirements for acting as an attorney for you. There are a bunch of other types of situations where people are not attorneys and they will admit that even, but still be willing to help you out with filling out forms and things like that. That is a real gray area that can definitely lead to some scams. So be wary of that. I'm not going to say that 100% of those are bad. I mean, I think that it is more likely bad than not. But just know that if you're working with that type of organization, you're doing so at your own risk. And it could, even if they do everything correctly for your case, their name could be in a system somewhere that could be pinging on USCIS's server. So it's possible that just any association with them could make your perfectly legitimate case suddenly have red flags all over it and be the subject of a lot of investigation. So just know that the risks involved, and when you're working with an attorney, make sure you're working with an attorney, because I don't want anybody falling for any scams out there. And I know everybody already knows this, but I just wanted to reiterate it, particularly since I had nothing else to talk about today.
Thanks, Rylan. That's super helpful.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah. What do people do if you are subject to a scam? What if you get scammed? What can you do?
Yeah. So you can I would definitely report it to. Who would you report it to, Luke? Where would you go to for that? And let me just turn it back on you.
Well, if it's an attorney who's maybe been disciplined, they're unauthorized to practice, you can always go to the attorney regulation in the state where they're licensed and report them. I think there's some other avenues too if someone is subject to notarial fraud. I think through EOIR, there's some avenues to report that fraud if they've been subject to it.
Yeah. I'm not sure if there are what types of avenues to status there are, if that's even possible.
Yeah.
So if that's something you're looking for, if you know that maybe you've been scammed and you thought you were going to get a green card, I don't know that that's possible through reporting the attorney, but it's definitely still a good idea to report them just for the sake of other people. But there, I know, for instance, what was that case? I mean, Padilla, right? Where if you have had ineffective assistance of counsel in a criminal case, that you could potentially try to redo that so that it wouldn't affect your immigration status. But in terms of poor representation in an immigration case that could try to be redone or just reverse, I'm not sure that we currently have anything on the books for that. But I could be wrong. I could be mistaken there.
Yeah. There's some mechanisms.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, Luke,
Yeah.
I know you found something to talk about today. It's about the reconciliation bill, right?
Yeah. So this week, if you've been watching the news at all this week, um, the Senate is going to be debating a reconciliation bill. So President Biden had this big agenda. They proposed a bill, it was dubbed Build Back Better, months ago, and that has fallen apart. But just recently, they announced that they came to some agreements to try to push through this reconciliation bill, largely focused on climate change and a few other provisions. But when the Senate is debating this reconciliation bill, I didn't really fully understand all the mechanics of how it's done in the Senate. But from what I understand, after looking into it a little bit, all the senators they can propose various amendments to this reconciliation bill, and it doesn't necessarily need to have to do anything with the big priorities in the reconciliation bill. It's primarily climate change legislation. It can be anything, and so we're expecting that there's going to be a number of amendments proposed by senators that are focused on immigration. Some will be very focused on like border security or some hardline immigration, new policies that are going to be presented to the Senate and then voted on. They call this whole process, they say they're going to have a votorama process. There's just going to be a ton of amendments that are going to be proposed. Some of them, and we anticipate a lot of them, are going to be very, very anti-immigrant and not things that we would like to see passed. And so, I just wanted to bring that up. Partly also, I wanted to segue and just talk about the importance of just advocacy with your congressional representatives. Congressional representatives, they're elected by us, their constituents, and they should report back to us, their constituents. It's really important that they know kind of what people in their districts and their states are thinking on particular issues. One thing that is really effective is to call your congressional representative and let them know, if there's a particular bill, particular piece of legislation, or just a particular issue that you have an opinion on, that you have strong feelings on. It's really important. Call your congressional representative, call their office and talk with one of the staffers there. You're not going to talk with the actual senator or representative, but they have staffers there that you can talk to and share your opinions, share your views, and they will communicate that to the representative, to the senator. They keep track of all the calls that they get. And so there's a particular bill that's being discussed or a particular issue that's in the news, their staffers are keeping track of how many people call and what the general sentiment is regarding particular issues. Oftentimes, unfortunately, we see anti-immigrant sentiment, people who are really opposed to any policies or legislation that's favorable towards immigrants. sometimes those are the people who call very frequently. They're congressional representatives, and so they make their voices heard, although it's not necessarily representative of the majority thinking on particular issues. So all that to say, call your local representative, call your senator. It might seem a little intimidating at the time, but it's super easy. You just call. It's a short conversation that you generally have with a staffer. They'll thank you for reaching out, and that's it. So it's very easy to do. So I just encourage you all to take action.
Yeah, and there's if you are afraid of calling, there are other options too. I'm gonna put this down at the bottom of our little stream here. It's a link that if you type in, and I'm also gonna put it into our comments section. So if you go to this link, it gives you a pre-written email that
Nice.
you can send, or you could even print it and send it, mail it to whatever your representative, and it has all the talking points. It has a little box in there where you can add in personal details about yourself, and why you might care about something. So that's another option too. So if you are passionate about this, but you maybe it's not even anxiety about calling, but for whatever reason you're just unable to call, feel free to send this little letter, and Ayla did a lot of work for you already. So
that's great. That's super helpful.
Yeah. I think it's kind of this weird thing because we don't exactly know what the issue is going to be. We just know that there's such a high likelihood that bad stuff is going to be tried to tack on to this, because the Democrats are kind of desperate for a win right now. We have midterms coming up, and so having a good look going into that is something that they want, and so they might be willing to concede certain points in order to get this bill passed. And so trying to preempt that and letting your representatives know that you really care about this issue is super important.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I don't see any questions for us today, so I guess we are good to go. Thank you for joining me today, Luke.
Anytime.
I love your waterfall look. I am really glowy today. I'm like in heaven. So we got air and the water. We need some fire and earth.
Just end it.
All right. Bye.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Have a good one.